Yeah, hi everyone. Thanks for joining us today. I'm excited to be here with Hélène. My name is Filip. I'm one of the founding partners at Cherry Ventures. We're an early stage fund with offices in Berlin, London, and Stockholm. And one of the things that we set out to do is back the most ambitious founders in Europe. And I don't think it gets much more ambitious than the company that Hélène is working on. So with that, Hélène, tell us a little bit about yourself and about the exploration company, and then we get started with the questions.
Yes, thank you very much, Filip. So I was at Airbus. I've been working at Ariane Group and Airbus for a bit more than 10 years. I've been building rockets. I've been building part of a capsule flying around the moon. And if you see what is happening in the US in the space sector, and the speed at which development happened there, if you compare it with the speed that we have in Europe, I thought kind of, okay, number one, we have the competencies, but number two, we are ways too slow. And if I want to contribute to the European space ecosystem, I am not sure it's the best choice to pursue my career at Airbus, because I'm not sure the speed of this incredible company is going to increase very, very fast. So I decided to leave. It was 4 years ago. We were 4 people. We had 50K in the bank account. And we said, you know what? We're going to build the first European capsule. Because we have no ways of flying our astronauts or even going to station and back. That's a market which is growing. And you, me, you, Filip, every year we pay $500 million with our cash, which is going to the US, so that we can fly our astronauts. We could just keep the money here, develop the technology here, and have this own capacity in our hands.
Yeah, I think it's a very good reason to leave. And I mean, it's a bold move to leave a good job at Airbus and start a small company. And, at the same time, keep the vision very, very big, which is something that you've always done. So tell us maybe a little bit about the first years when you had to raise your first round of funding, convince private investors first, because obviously at some point a project in space requires a lot of capital, and that is typically also funded by public money, but
Absolutely.
That comes much later. So tell us a bit about sort of how you went about and raising funds. How much have you raised in total, and maybe also what the plan is for the future?
Yeah. So far we've raised the biggest seed, the biggest Series A, and the biggest Series B ever raised by a space startup in Europe. And again, thank you very much to Cherry, who you were among the first to believe in us. And at the beginning, I think it was all about the people. Because let's face it, developing a cargo capsule cost $500 million. Developing a crew capsule cost $3 billion. And if you're 4 people saying, you know what, we're going to build something Europe never had, never did, but please trust us, just give us $500 million, this is going to happen. It was quite a bet. But the team was very, very much experienced. We were people having worked already on a capsule actually that successfully flew around the moon and came back. And this is basically how we've been growing the company. We've really focused on people. And I will give a few examples of people we just hired recently. We hired the former NASA deputy administrator. So Jim Free, basically former NASA CTO, is our CTO now. We've hired Katie Luders. She was the one managing all the capsule programs at NASA. Then she was the managing director of Starbase at SpaceX. She's now working with us. Because in space, the success is about building a successful product, and to build a successful product, we need the right technical people in place, and we need the right, I would say, risk mentality. And what we found is that in Europe, we have a lot of competence, a lot of people who are frustrated by the speed that they experience in, I would say, other companies, and the exploration company was for them the opportunity to unleash their talents and the opportunity to write space history in Europe.
Yeah. And I think that's the impact you're making. I mean, I think maybe also a good advice for founders to get these people in at a time where they may seem, one weight class above the one that you're boxing.
Yeah.
But how do you get them excited for the company? I think one thing is a big vision. Then there's Europe, that we all sort of believe we need to step up our game here and try working on the hard stuff. And obviously space is one of those categories. But are there any other aspects? How did you manage to get this quality of people to join you at such an early stage?
So, as you said, there is the vision, and when we work in space, we're all passionate about how we contribute to the ecosystem. So, building again, the first European capsule was making history here in Europe. There is the mission of the company, which is we build space vehicle across nations to foster collaboration and peace, which is very important. At a time when space is a place for war, space is a place where China is against US, which is sometimes against Europe. No, we are building our capsule between Europe and the US. We are building a lunar vehicle between Europe and the UAE, and we're hopefully going to bring these continents to the lunar surface for the first time before the end of the decade. And we are working on a very big rocket engine that we are building around European countries, and I hope to be able to bring Ukraine with us to build this engine. So this mission is very important. But also the way we build the company, because we had to mitigate the risks. So if you are a very experienced person, or even like mid-career, typically you have a mortgage, you have kids. So if you want to join like a 10-people company, you kind of need to be convinced that the risk profile is going to be okay for the next 2 to 3 years. Sometimes I had to convince wives, or never husbands, but I had to convince a lot of wives that they need to trust me. And the way we de-risk the model, and this is really something new that we've pioneered in Europe. As you said, Philippe, we started with private financing, but at the same time we engaged the member states. And so within 2 years, while when we started there was no capsule program in Europe, 2 years after we founded the company, we had a political agreement with all the 25 countries, European countries which are part of the European Space Agency, saying, we're going to build a capsule in Europe and we're going to open a competition. And then they opened a competition, we won that competition, we ranked number 1 in that competition, ahead of incumbents, very, very large companies. And now we are just a week before a very big event where all the space ministers of Europe, they're going to gather. And we have secured on our side 225 million from private financing, so we have secured a large chunk of the development of this capsule. And if everything goes well, they're going to give us hundreds of millions so that the co-financing of the first flight is then fully funded. Not only that, they're going to buy 3 to 4 commercial flights after the first flight as anchor client. And remember I said at the beginning, your cash is going to the US to pay SpaceX, to fly our astronauts. Well, guess what? There's been 3 weeks ago an agreement signed between NASA and the European Space Agency. It had to go to the White House on the American side because this is law, this is an international agreement that from 28 onwards, we will still be flying our astronauts, of course, but we will pay in kind with a European cargo capsule.
Yeah.
So you see, private investors like you, I'm super grateful. You've taken a lot of risks. And the way we mitigate the risk and also the way we hire best people because the risks are somehow mitigated is that at the same time, we really shape the European space strategy, agenda, roadmap. We work with member states and we have this equilibrium between public financing, acting as an anchor client, and also private financing, co-financing development of the capsule at the beginning.
I think it's super interesting. And I mean, it's also one of your tasks as a CEO to navigate this political landscape, right? Because then the French have different interests than the Germans, and then you have the UK, and suddenly Europe, as united as it seems, it becomes full of individual interests and quite politically. So, what would you say you've learned from navigating this strange world of politicians?
Well, the first advice I would give to people building companies across nations in Europe is to develop a true love for the cultures of the pays we are in. Yeah. I had the chance to live in Germany since quite a while, but it's very important when I meet with a German minister that I speak German. I was not speaking Italian, and I'm now learning Italian so that I can speak with Italian ministers in Italian. This is not an anecdote. This makes a huge difference. Yeah. It's not that we shall learn all the languages, but that is as a minimum viable cultural knowledge and understanding and respect for the country. And then, of course, we need at the same time to build what I call the European dream. Because, I mean, let's imagine in a few years that you, your kids, your grandkids, I don't know, they can watch a capsule a launcher taking off, and on top of that, a capsule full with European astronauts coming from France, Germany, Italy, UK, etc. And this is a demonstration of what we can do when we bring talents together in Europe. So this is this European dream that we are who we are when we collaborate across nations, and we can build amazing stuff together. But at the same time, we need to have this national story that for Italy or for France or for Germany or for the UK, this is basically what you get, and this is how you develop your core technologies. So what we did was a bit like when you're at a restaurant, you have the main course, the dessert, like the starter, and you want to pick the best out of each. So as an example, in Germany is excellent for a final assembly, because the car industry, of course, is very strong in Germany. So we said we're going to put the final assembly in Germany. France, very strong for re-entry in the atmosphere, because France builds ballistic missiles, which by definition they re-enter. So we build the re-entry in France. Italy, very strong for life support system. We build life support system in Italy. So we try to choose the core competencies of each country.
Maybe let's switch gears a little bit, Hélène, and talk a little bit more about how you're running the company. We talked about the big vision, the European dream that you're after with the exploration company, that basically everyone that joins the company subscribes to or underwrites. One of the things that impressed me the most is how you then took that mission and broke it down into very clear milestones. It says like, yes, this is where we want to get to in 27, 28, 29, but in order to get there, we have to do A, B, C, D. So talk to us a little bit about like running such a complex business with different lines of business, with manufacturing involved, with a lot of supply chain risk, a lot of political components that you need to navigate. So what's your model of controlling all of that complexity within the exploration company?
Yeah. So perhaps two angles. When we started, we were, again, 4 people, 50K in the bank account, so we cannot build a 500 million capsule. We had to go step by step, and we had to demonstrate as fast as possible that, number one, we are credible from a technical perspective, and number two, we're going to have clients. This is the same in every business. So we started with a baby capsule that we built in 9 months, and for less than 2.5 million, which is a world record. And then we built a teenage capsule that we flew in June this year, built in less than 3 years for 25 million. Again, at least for my knowledge, a world record. So we demonstrated speed. We demonstrated the capacity to fly very fast. This was the way for us to structure the supply chain, structure our processes, hire top talent, and also to demonstrate to you that we can stick to our cost and schedule, which is very important. And then now we are fully focused on the main capsule. So that's basically the way forward when we have very, very high ambitions to step by step build the trust on achievable milestones. And now the way to manage all of this complexity, what we've set up in the company, because people need at the end of that to be very, very focused, we have 3 to 5 priorities every quarter. For the executive committee level, it's fully transparent for all people in the company. So they know our priorities, they also know how we performed and how much we've met our objectives or not by the end of the quarter. And I have personally at least a dashboard, which is a technical dashboard, a financial dashboard. On the strategy, I don't need a dashboard. But on the pieces where I know we need to deliver absolutely, otherwise we're going to be messed up, we've been working on the technical side and financial side with kind of, dashboard, which are shared also with all the management.
Yeah. And I think it's also fair. Everyone knows space is one of the hardest areas you can build in, and there will be failures, right? And I think if you look at the launch that we had last year in summer, it was a success. But it was a partial success because eventually the capsule was lost. Can you talk a little bit about this moment where obviously you work for something for such a long time? I remember sitting on the screen, watching the stream that you guys organized for the flight, and then everyone sort of cheering, of course, when when things went well, and then suddenly, there was this moment where it was clear, okay, we couldn't communicate to the capsule. And of course, that can do something with the morale of a team, that can do something to your own ambition, but then it can also do the opposite. You can turn things around. It's like, okay, we've failed, we've learned something, now we move on and we try again. So talk maybe a bit about, so how do you handle such failures, such step backs in the light of, of course, still keeping the big goal in mind?
So there's been, I would say, 3 phases after the failure. So to be clear, as you said, we partially failed or partially succeeded. Basically, the first part of the mission went very well. And we re-entered successfully via the atmosphere. So we didn't burn, which was the 3rd time in the whole European history. So still, we marked a historical milestone. And then we couldn't deploy the parachute. So we crashed on the water. Good. So we lost the vehicle, we lost the mission. The first part was to really, really focus on the team, to rebuild the morale, to rebuild the energy, and also to really pass the message that failure is allowed, failure is part of the road, and we are here to learn and to improve and to get the most of it. So as an example, nobody got fired because of that failure. And the day after that failure, we are in 5 different locations. So every day I was in location with the team, 2 hours Q&A, with next to me virtually my chief engineer answering all the questions. And the transparency about what we know, what we don't know, what happened, how we're going to move forward was essential to rebuild the momentum.
Yeah.
Because then the team could see that they can trust the management. The management is not going to fire people because we failed. The management is here to learn together with the team. And the management is going to be fully transparent about what we did right or wrong. And I'm going to be fast. The second step was essential. The second step was to continue to build the trust with the client. Because as I told you, we expect to receive hundreds of millions in 10 days. So if the European Space Agency would have lost the trust in us, this would have completely derailed the company.
Yeah.
And for that, we immediately proposed to have an independent team doing an investigation of what exactly happened. And we shared with our investors, we shared with the clients, we shared with the team why we failed and what we're going to fix to do better next time. And the third path is right now, because now we've been mourning and we are back with full energy. So at the Christmas party, I'm going to share with the whole team what we did amazingly great with this product, so that not only we learn from what we did wrong, but we continue at the same speed with the same can-do mindset that somehow was also affected by the failure in June.
Yeah, I think it's such an important message for founders in general, but I think also for Europe as a continent, because we are a place where people rather, point your finger and say like, "Oh, this is never going to work," or of course, this was a failure. In space, it's more normal. Things will fail. It's so hard to build in space that eventually you will have to iterate, you will have to learn over time. But to embrace that culture of failure, turn it around, turn it into momentum, into new momentum, and then actually get the team behind it. I think this is, for me, really, I think a big learning that not only space companies should take and take away from this. But again, it was a success to the degree that the mission was successful from the start. You learned a lot, and now looking ahead after this completion, what's next for you in terms of products? You talked about human capsules as well, but there's a lot of other projects coming up for the exploration company. So maybe you can give us a little sneak peek without telling too many secrets. You still have to save something for next week for the conference, I guess.
So, okay, our vision is to be the number one in Europe and one of the top players in the world regarding space transportation. So we started with capsule because there was no capsule in Europe, but what you think about that, space transportation means crew transportation, also means rockets, also means we go to the moon. So how do we get there?
Did you hear that? We go to the moon?
Sorry? Yes, we go to the moon. So lots of countries are going to the moon. By the way, we are late in Europe. We'll be the last reaching lunar surface. So how do we get there? Very important event in 1 week, roughly speaking, so Thursday next week, where Europe's going to decide how much member states of the European Space Agency are going to commit for the next 3 years to this capsule program, but also to a very, very big rocket engine program, where we are already starting working to build the biggest rocket engine ever built in Europe. So this is happening 8 days, sorry, more near soon. Then what is coming next? Because as you can see, space is an area where it's privately driven, but also very much publicly driven. So we need always to find, like SpaceX, this balance between public funding, private funding. In April 26, the French president is organizing an international space summit where he wants to shape the European product and service roadmap. What kind of rockets must Europe have in 10 to 15 years? What kind of crew capabilities must we have? What kind of constellation? What kind of stuff do we build if we want to have our European Starlink, right? And we know that Iris Square, which at a certain time, was thought to be the solution, is very much criticized right now. So we need to get Iris Square done in an amazing way so that it convinces all the nations involved in this program, for example. And I have the chance or the honor that I was nominated last week, Special Envoy, so that's a diplomatic title, by the French president, basically to shape, together with Thomas Pesquet, the French astronaut, this summit. So the next step is really working together with Germany, with France, with Italy, but also with the United States, so that we shape and hopefully find agreement between states and across industries, which is not going to be very easy, because on the one hand we compete, but on the other hand we are here to serve a European space ambition that we will be defining at this summit. So that's a very exciting milestone. And then we fly as fast as possible.
One of the things that we say a lot at Cherry, it's kind of a bit of our mantra, is dream in decades but execute in days. Yeah? And let's dream for a second. Like, let's zoom out like 10 days. Let's look at Europe. If everything goes right, if literally all the stars align for the exploration company, what type of Europe would we be looking at? What would the exploration company become?
Yeah, so if the stars align, in 10 to 15 years, we would have become a global space company, one of the top 3, if not top 2 in the world, with European roots. We would have one of the biggest launcher in the world, but that launcher is universal. All the spacecraft we build, they are built across nations. Meaning it would take off from Kourou in French Guiana, it would land in Oman, it would take off again, it would land in Australia, take off again, hopefully land in Cape Canaveral, we'll see. Of course, we'll have a crew capsule. Of course, we'll have a lunar lander. And I hope, because I think this is very, very important too, not only will be on the transportation side, but we'll be contributing to a very, very big satellite constellation. Because what is coming from space, especially communication, is critical for the world. And we need other players. And I think this is the special card of Europe. Europe is something unique in history in the sense that we've been fighting each other for centuries. And then after Second World War, we've been creating this European Union. And the basis of the European Union, the first thing was the CECA, which was basically to share together steel and coal because we don't want war to happen again. And between the countries of the European Unions, war never happened again. But we know this is very fragile. And basically at the exploration companies, what we want to scale, when I say we build space vehicles across nations, so we are sharing critical technologies, military technologies, dual-use technologies across nations every time we build that vehicle across nations. And doing that, we are contributing to make space, which is our future as humans, more collaborative, more peaceful, and we are scaling this European collaborative mindset worldwide. So this is what I wish for our company. Of course, we'll have products which are universal and which will embody in reality this sharing of technologies across nations where we will be working with.
How could we end this better? Thank you so much, Hélène, for joining me on stage today. Thanks, everyone, for listening in.